Well, I got started in my mission, you might call it, okay, when my son, unfortunately, was murdered in the Ninth Ward of New Orleans. Attempting to buy drugs. I had no knowledge of his addiction, okay, but obviously he had an addiction. I came to learn a lot about addiction after that, but I also had to go on a mission. I had to go in and try to find his killer. I did that, but then I had promised God, basically, that I would go on a mission to try to discourage kids from doing drugs and do whatever I could do to teach and educate and reduce the drug problem. My son Danny was actually a very, very peaceful kid. Never had a fight, never had a detention. Some kind of way he drifted in and tried a very potent drug called crack. It became addicted. And that thing plays with your mind. And Danny had this idea that you don't do anything wrong, everything's gonna be okay. But it's a chaotic situation when you start messing around with drugs. You can get yourself in a position where you don't do anything wrong, and you do everything right, and you're just buying a drug, but you can get killed. The horror that parents go through, okay, is, our son left our house at about maybe 10:30 at night, told us he was going out to get some notes to study for an exam. After he left the house, we were sleeping, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, there was a loud knock on the door. And obviously, we jump out of bed and we go answer the door, and there's 2 policemen standing there, and we can't figure out what's going on. Can we come in? And then they asked us to sit down. And they said, your son had been shot. At least that's what I heard. And I said, what hospital was he in? And they said, no, he's dead. And I now think maybe they actually said that he was shot and killed, but I didn't hear that. Neither did my wife. She yelled and said, no, he's upstairs in his room. And his sister ran to his room, and she yelled down, Mom, he's not in his room. And the horror of understanding that all of a sudden your son is dead. And many parents get a phone call and told their kids are dead. But it's a shock, and it really destroys you forever. I knew that the person that killed my son did much worse than what my son did. And so I had to find his killer, okay? And again, I went out and walked the streets in dangerous areas, which has made it a big story, okay? And I beat the path for months and months and months, and finally I came across a witness, and she became a hero in this story. Well, I'm a pharmacist, and I find myself in an unusual position of knowing about addiction and knowing about the opioid drugs and seeing it right in front of my eyes. This drug fentanyl that I'm talking about is extremely lethal, okay? An example of that I've been shown is if you take a pack of like Sweet and Low or Splenda and you open it up and you dump it out completely, and then you lick your finger and you go inside that packet and you taste it, you taste some sweet. There's a little tiny bit of residue left in that empty packet, okay? If that were fentanyl, you'd be dead. It takes a speck. Some people show a penny, and the penny's this size, okay? And one little speck on that penny, one little crumb of this drug can actually many times be lethal. This drug is not a drug to play with, and the scary thing is you don't know what it's in. Well, teenagers and young people really believe they're invincible. They just can't envision these bad scenarios happen to them. What a lot of kids don't realize is that one bad decision can change the entire course of your life. In my son's case, obviously, horribly, it led to his tragic death. One event, one misstep sometimes can change your entire life. You have to make the right choices. My message out there would be stay away from these drugs, kids. No matter what you do, stay away from these drugs. You're playing Russian roulette with any experimentation. And today we have pills now, fake look-alike pills now, that are laced with fentanyl. And one pill can kill. You are there, you're on the ground and you see this developing. Take some pride in your school. Be worried about your friend, okay? You don't want to go to your friend's funeral, okay? My son's friends have regretted that all of their lives. And we've forgiven them. Initially, I was pretty angry with them, to be honest with you. I had a phrase, I said, you guys carried his coffin before he died. When I used to drive to work after my son was killed, there's a grove of trees in St. Bernard Parish that you drive through. And it's kind of a peaceful thing. It's a 2-lane highway and there's a grove of trees. I would go through there and I would pray. And I picked up on this sense that, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And this thing actually was sort of dark, a canopy of trees, and you could see light in that tunnel. So when I finally did start my mission to talking in schools and doing what I could do to discourage kids and trying to work on this problem and save family tragedies, I named it Tunnel of Hope. But this is real, and people are dying, kids are dying. So do your part, and not only stay away from drugs, but do your part to be a leader, a peer that can interject in some way, shape, or form and help us reduce this problem.
Coming up new on Fox 8 News at 10, a young murder victim's family turns its grief into action. You'll see how they're determined to help police solve the crime.
Well, here's an update on several stories we've been following. New Orleans police have arrested 2 people for the April 1999 murder of 22-year-old Daniel Schneider, formerly of Chalmette. 29-year-old Preston Hunter of New Orleans and an unidentified 16-year-old boy are charged with first-degree murder.